Are there advantages to aging? Yes, I am Debbi-Jo Horton, and welcome to Advantages to Aging. Join my guests and I as we discuss aging and what makes for a healthy lifestyle, which results in a quality life. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Advantages to Aging. And I am so excited because I have my good friend, Andy Kumlin, otherwise known as Andrea, but not to me. I call her Andy, who is with us today because she has been doing something really cool in her retirement. So just to give you a little background, she's going to be talking about elder care. So something that we all hopefully are going to face at some point in time. And she kind of got it in multiple doses all at once and really took on the responsibility, not just for her mother, who had dementia at the time, but also other family members and friends. And so learning all the things and having to deal with all of that, she realized there was no place that someone could go and get all the answers. So she decided to take it on herself. Welcome to the show, Andrea Kumlin of Senior Sass, and she is sassy. Welcome.
Well, thank you, DJ, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I kind of think that Senior Sass fits right into advantages to aging, like a handshake, frankly.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of goes right together. But thank you for having me.
For sure. So I kind of alluded a little bit to it, but what really drove you to do this? Like, can we just kind of dig into that? Because it's something that you're either going to find interesting or horrifying, because at some point you're probably going to face it. And if you listen in, you'll have some heads up on what's coming and how to handle it.
You're entirely correct. Basically, I found the need for a forum, pretty much a repository of resources if you want. But let me dive down a little bit. I grew up in a multi-generational household, loved the seniors. My grandmother was a hoot. And my father-in-law was a hoot as well. And I also ended up caring for my mother, who contracted dementia basically, and learned an awful lot. But through that whole entire experience, there's just wisdom that is acquired. And here I am after my mother had died, thinking it was done, everything's done. And I have friends and family that are coming up to me and saying, "What did you do when such and such happened? How did you do that? How did you communicate to the family? What kind of things did you need? Like, what kind of paperwork did you need? Who did you talk to?" I'm sitting here like thinking that my retirement was going to be like, oh, I'll just, you know, start knitting and have fun. And I'm like, oh, you need some help? Okay, well, I went to so and so for this. We started a Gmail account or a Google account that everybody was in to schedule all of mom's appointments and everything. So I didn't have to call up everybody and tell them. And we used Google Drive to put common documents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just really surprised that I was getting these questions, frankly. I really thought that elder care and questions like that was better socialized or understood. As you said, DJ, this is going to happen to everybody. Everybody has elders in their lives. And if they don't have them now, they're going to become the elders. And I can tell you I'm 65 now, and I'm very happily 65, and I intend to enjoy every single second I have.
And you do.
But, yes, I do. But my children have also come up and scratched their heads and said, "Who's going to take care of you, Mom? What's going to happen? How are you going to set it up?" So we're already starting to talk about this stuff, but not every family does. And a lot of families just, they kind of go along and go along, and they're just so enmeshed in their own lives that the care of their mother or their father kind of hits them in the face, where they actually have to do something. And they haven't really put a lot of thought into it, but they're now at the point of, oh my God, she fell over, she's going in the hospital. What do we do? And that's a scary place to be. So I've decided to create Senior Sass.
So what exactly is
And
Senior Sass?
Senior Sass, well, it's a forum, as I was talking about before. The goal really is to share information for a better outcome of care. I wrote this, so I'm reading it for both the recipient and the caregiver. Basically, you want the best life. I read a lot, by the way. Basically, you want the best life that you can live. So if you can share information to make a better outcome, then that's the best case. It's a best practice. If I can
What
tell
exactly
people,
do you mean by that? To make a better life?
for instance, I'll give an example of what we're working on right now. My sister, I can't take credit for this concept, but I can talk about it and pretend it was mine. But she came up with the concept of a go bag. Now you're talking about a go bag. What the heck's a go bag? A go bag is a bag that's packed with things that you're going to need when you go to the ER. Now, everybody knows an ER event usually takes about 6 hours. Guaranteed. We benchmarked it. It's not 4, it's not 8, it's usually 6. So you walk in, you have to strip, you have to get in bed, you have to have all the tests and everything else. You get diagnosed eventually, and then you either get admitted into the hospital or you get discharged. Okay. It's about a 6-hour turnaround. So we decided that there were certain things that my mother needed in the hospital. There were certain common things, and those things included a plush blanket because mom got cold. And so what we would do is she would strip down, put her Johnny on, lay out in the bed, and we'd put a plush blanket over her. And ERs are wonderful for coming up with these really great heated blankets. Well, the heat only lasts like 15 minutes. And then you're stuck with mom saying, I'm cold, I'm cold. But again, it's a best practice. It's the best that she can live that part of her life for those minutes that she's under that blanket. So that's an
What
example.
else might be in a go bag? Because I'm sure that some of our listeners think about go bags as, oh, the baby's coming, let's head to the hospital.
Well, it kind
Similar?
of is, yeah. Well, there's things like a plush blanket. Make sure you get your phone charger cord in there, because I'll tell you, there's nothing like being at the hospital and having your phone die. Make sure you bring some money for the vending machine, because if you're a Diet Coke addict like me, you got to have some somewhere. And then other things are paperwork like healthcare proxy, also the insurance cards that your elder needs, a list of medications, a list of the pharmacies basically that the patient will buy their prescriptions at. It's especially include the pharmacy, because the doctors from the hospital can always call the pharmacy and find out whatever the scripts are in play at any given time. So it's stuff like that. And as I said, I just did a little video on it. It should be up in YouTube pretty soon.
Excellent. So is Senior Sass its own website? Like how can the listeners find Senior Sass and get access to all those goodies?
Okay. Right now, Senior Sass is on social media, the only social media that I know how to control. So it's more what I can do and what I can't do. Um, and I do have a history in IT, so I know a little bit. I can be dangerous. But it's on YouTube. It's also on Instagram and Facebook. Now, I haven't gone out to the other forums yet because I don't own accounts there yet, and they scare me.
So,
But
so what can one expect to find when they say go to your YouTube channel for a Senior Sass? What types of information other than that great, like here's what should be in your go bag?
well, I'm talking about elder documents right now. Like, as your parents are getting older, what kind of elder documents do you need? You're going to need a will. You're going to need healthcare proxy. You're going to need power of attorney, that type of thing. Some of these are state driven and some are federal. It's so there will be a commentary about that and where to get them. Other things are, how do I know my loved one needs care? This is a big question. Okay. My mother's acting erratically. Hmm. Does she need care? Well, there's checklists out there, and people just don't know this, and they're called activities of daily living. And these checklists came up, they were developed in the 1950s, and they're used in the healthcare industries as well as the insurance industries. Because if you if you cannot do, say, two or three of the activities of daily living, that will kick off your long-term care insurance. Very interesting. So I was surprised. Why aren't these well known?
Accessible.
And they're right, they just aren't. Basically, there's two levels of activities of daily living. One is they're more complex activities of daily living, and I think it's instructional, but I may be incorrect here. And then the other one is basic activities of daily living. The instructional ones are more around money management, medicinal management. Are you able to organize transportation? As in, can you drive or can you call Uber, that type of thing? Communication with the outside world, that type of thing. The basic activities of daily living are more about grooming, toileting, eating, being able to walk, ambulating, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So I do talk about that, and that's actually going to be the next video that comes out within the next couple of weeks. But one thing that I will say is that when we go to visit our parents in their own house, we have a set context about how we expect to see them. And as long as they act like that, we think they're fine. But what I'm going to ask people to do is observe, just observe. Is your mother holding on to the back of the chair? Is she using the wall to help keep her up? Is the house a little dirtier? Is she having trouble? Now, we don't think so because your parents are acting the way that they normally act within their own environment. But observe. So that will be something else.
Yeah, and I know that Senior Sass is just getting kicked off, and you have lots of tips and resources that are going to be coming. The one thing that I found after you and I had spoken about being more observant of, your parent in their living environment is, are there pills underneath the table where they think they're taking all their medications, but many of them are ending up on the floor? Or my mother was recently in the hospital and the doctor asked if she missed any of her medications, and she said no. And then when he asked specifically about a particular medication, she goes, well, I did miss it once. And because I fell asleep early and I didn't wake up until the next morning, so I didn't take it. And he said, but you took your heart medicine? And she said, yes. And then he asked her a bunch of other questions. And after he walked out, I said, wait a minute, don't you take both of those pills together? This one and this one? And she said, yes. And I said, so how did you miss one and not miss the other? And she goes, well, I missed both of them. And I was like, but the doctor specifically asked you if you had missed your heart medication and you said you had not. And she was like, well, only just that one night. So to her, it wasn't important, but to him, it was very important. So
Yes.
yeah. So as much as, you don't want to be correcting your elders, sometimes you need to for their own benefit. She was a
That's
little.
exactly that's exactly correct. And your pill point is very accurate because my experience with my mother, as she started her dementia, she decided that she was going to just go off all of her meds. Now, we didn't know she had problems. She had AFib. She was on Coumadin, basically, but she decided she didn't need it. And she was a registered nurse too, by the way. But her mantra at that time was, body, heal thyself.
Yes.
My body will heal itself. That's what bodies are for. That's what will happen. And I'm sitting here like, so after 6 months of really running around and finding out she really did have a heart condition and there were problems, and after 2 TIAs that she didn't know what was going on with her, probably leading into the vascular dementia that she ended up being diagnosed and died of, you know, that's what happens. So again, you don't have to correct them necessarily, but be observant, because that way you won't be as surprised.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, clearly I needed to correct her, and I tried to do it not in front of her with the doctor, but as soon as the doctor said, "So you did forget?" She knew I told on her. So she was at first a little bit upset, but then thankful because she realized that that was part of the reason why she ended up in the hospital. Now, on one hand, she was like, "Oh, I did this to myself." On the other hand, it was like, at least I'm not losing my mind. Like, I'm not forgetting things. I'm not like, this is not the end. I can fix this. So I am so looking forward to seeing where Senior Sass goes in the future. And listeners, you didn't get all the sass that Andy usually comes across with. So you're going to have to go check out her website, which will be coming later in the year. But check out her YouTube, follow her on Facebook, because I know she's on Facebook, Senior Sass. And you will really enjoy the information that you get, the attitude about not always taking yourself too seriously, but serious enough. And I just wanted to thank you so much, Andy, for being with us and sharing some of your experience.
Well, thank you, DJ. I really had a great time. Thank you so much.
Do you think one of the biggest advantages to aging is all the knowledge we gain along the way? Me too. What did you learn today? Share with me in my Facebook group with the same name as this podcast, Advantages to Aging. Now hit subscribe so you don't miss all the tips to come in future episodes.